with all due respect.
Recording in progress. We are back. We don't know what episode this is. We say that every time, but the podcast is called With All Due Respect, and we are here once again with Randy Carlson, who's got a uh, good memorabilia in the back, right? um, Obviously, not a Patriots fan.
Not a Patriots fan.
But this is a continuation of our series. We're talking the state of youth sports. And as you guys know, we've kind of avoided this topic for a long time. We get in health, we had wellness, and the youth sports kept rearing its ugly head towards us. And Gray had her experiences. I've had my experiences in coaching. Grace had experiences in playing athletics and with great coaches. Randy Carlson is on. Guys, we had him on before.
Yeah, I think episode 5 or 6.
Episode
Like
5,
early.
right?
Yeah.
We debated on bringing him back, and we agreed. We're bringing him back. Randy, talk to us about who you are, what you've done. People are probably going to see this and be like, oh, it's Randy. It's about just baseball. And it's not. It's going to be about youth sports, right? It's going to be about youth sports, the state of youth sports. And I want to get this out of the way before Randy kind of talk to us about you. This is not a parent bashing podcast. This is not a sport bashing, a player bashing, a coach bashing. We want to get down to what are some issues in this billion-dollar industry. We want to get down what are some issues, what are some solutions, where can we get better, where can coaches get better, where can players, where can parents, because ultimately this is about the kid, and we forget that, right? Randy, talk to us about who you are, what you've done, and let's get us all things Randy Carlson.
Sure. So, I run a baseball and softball academy, East Coast Baseball Academy in Charleston, South Carolina. Coached 10 years of college baseball at 3 different levels, from junior college to Division II and Division I. I've been in the player development and travel ball world and all that since 2011, and have just had a lot of experiences seeing players from the very beginning all the way on through the process now. We've worked with everything from kids that are 5 years old all the way to Major League Baseball players, and everything in between, and just kind of seeing all angles of this at this point.
Yeah, and you've been, I mean, when you think about it, you've probably started playing baseball as a young kid, right?
Oh yeah.
And you've been into, I said this last time, I hated to say this. I think I said this in a TikTok video. I hate saying that I've been involved in this for decades. I said that, I said it, and I paused, and I'm like, oh, decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have been
involved
in it for decades. If somebody were to come to you, Randy, and a parent was going to sit down with you, and they said, hey, this youth sports thing, there's things in the media, there's books, there's horror stories, there's great stories. I said, Randy, can you kind of give me a synopsis of what you think the current state of youth sports is? That's a big loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What would you say if someone sat down with you to interview you and said, what's the current state of youth sports, Randy? And what's this thing we're about to get into? And is there any guidance you can tell us as parents? And then we'll start with that side of it first. What do you feel is the current state of youth sports?
You remember the old relationship status on stuff where it said it's complicated?
Yeah.
That's the current state of youth sports. It's I feel like every day I'm having the conversation with somebody that used to be so much easier. And you talking about being in this for decades, and I'm sitting here like, man, like, am I going to start saying good old days? And when I was young, but it used to be so simple. And I'm not saying better. Okay, there's good things now. There's bad things now, but it's a whole lot more complicated than it used to be. You used to with whatever sport you were playing, Doesn't matter if it's baseball, softball, football, soccer, basketball, whatever. You kind of you were going to play for your town or your school or whatever it was. You knew who was going to coach. There weren't, you weren't trying to find a team. You weren't trying to find people to train you. It was a very, very simple process. Okay. And at that point there was things that was lacking for sure. There are things now where you have access to a lot more stuff. You have options. But through some of that, there's been a lot of confusion that's been created. A lot of stuff a lot of misconception out there, whether it's from a travel ball standpoint, a player development standpoint, a social standpoint. There's so many things, and I feel bad for a lot of the parents and a lot of the players, because I do think a lot of them have the right intentions. They do have the right things in mind, but man, if you don't know the things that you hear and you get told by, whether it's other parents, whether it's somebody that's trying to get you to play for their travel, I mean, whatever it is, I mean, people they don't know what to listen to. They don't know what to believe. And at the end of the day, they want to do what's best for their kid, right? Like they love their kid. They want to help their kid. They want their kid to grow up to be successful, whatever that means for them. And um, there is a whole lot of stress and complication now that didn't used to exist.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember. Again, you want to avoid using the good old days. Like I said, there are good things. There were good things back then. There are good things 10 years ago. There are good things 2 years ago. There were good things now, right?
Right.
It's not all bad. And I think gone is the day that, well, it's not gone. It's still out there. You just got to find it. Gone is the day where you roll down the street to the park, you pay 99 bucks for 8 games. You have one practice a week for your little kid. Um, you play one game a week, you have one practice a week, and you tell the kid, you drop them off, and you go, man, go have fun.
Yeah.
And in baseball, it's, you know, learning how to take a ground ball and keep your chest in front of the ball, and you take one off the chin, right? You learn, because that happened to me. I actually took a ground. I had a dad that made me play short, or made me play third base. But at third base, I had to play like on the grass because
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not afraid of the ball. And then I'm up there like scared to death, and some dude hit a one hopper right in the chin, right,
Oh,
pitches in the chin, and you learn to dig in and not be afraid of the ball, right? And I think those days are kind of dwindling, right? And you can see that if you are a parent. I would say go out to some of the sports leagues, go out to I hate to call out league. I'm not going to try to call out leagues, but go out to specific youth leagues out there that are big baseball leagues. We're going to use that because that's a lot of your experience. And go listen to parents talk.
Hmm.
Go listen to parents yell at a 19-year-old kid behind the plate.
do you think there's a disconnect between the parent and the athlete now? Both of you? Because like, I don't know, I guess I grew up a little bit playing like, sports at the park.
Yeah,
But I've told Josh before, like I didn't grow up with parents that, played with me really. And that's probably more because of my sport.
Hmm.
Like my parents never played soccer, so that was kind of an individual thing. But do you think that, parents are too busy to have that connection with the athlete?
I think a lot of parents infuse their goal onto the kid at a very
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
yeah.
There's a lot of different angles of that. And I mean, I've seen it all. You get the ones, and I do think it can be very sports dependent. Um, you know, Baseball and softball, it's the percentage of parents when they were kids or when they were in school that played it obviously was extremely high. So some of them, you know, think they know a lot more than they probably do. But some of them obviously use that as an advantage and use their experience to better help the kid. but sometimes like kind of like Josh is saying, it's like, well, I didn't achieve this because I didn't do this, so I'm going to make sure that you don't miss the opportunities that I missed, and there can be that. But I do think in some of the sports that aren't maybe as widely participated in, um, you see more of your experience. And I'll give you an example. We've actually got a cheerleading academy that's right next door to our baseball and softball academy, and um, they have a different um, experience with parents than we do because, I mean, yes, you get, there's obviously your stereotypical cheerleading moms and stuff like that and all that, but for the most part, you know, people don't think they know how to do that. So it's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it's more like, hey, we're dropping you off, do your thing, and then that's the extent of it. Whereas in, I think a baseball or a basketball or something like that, that's very, widely participated in, you see a lot more of I guess the things that you hear about so much with youth sports now.
Yeah.
I hope I explained that well, but
Yeah, no, 100%. I think maybe the question is, you know, parents only see their kids play during a game and they don't watch as much practice. So there may be this elevated idea of, okay, my kid's really good in some of the games. And I think they're better than X amount of players on both teams. Like they should be at a higher level, but they don't see them in practice. They don't see the development. They kind of just like hand the kids off to go, to the coaches.
so, honestly, we see a lot of the opposite problem
Oh,
where
good.
it's like,
Or I guess there's a problem, so maybe bad.
yeah, and there's good and bad in everything, right? Like,
Right.
but now so many times, like, I mean, parents watch the entire practice, every practice. Now whether they see what the coaches are seeing, that's a different topic. But
Yeah.
I mean, the days of just like dropping them off at baseball practice or softball practice and picking them up when it's over and asking them how things went and all of that. I mean, like sometimes it's like cut the cord, like let the kid
Wow.
drop them off at practice,
And just let
let
them
the
be.
coaches have their time, leave them alone, let them do their thing and grow up. And I mean, no, I mean, you'll see as many parents at practices as you do at the games.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah,
Like
It
that's
is.
just a very different experience, I think.
and I'm not saying, and everybody has, not everybody's motivation's the same. Sometimes it's just straight up hey, I don't want to get back out in traffic, so I ain't going
Yeah.
anywhere.
Oh,
I'm gonna,
yeah.
but
Especially in
there's,
Charleston.
yeah, but there's
I'm
a
here this
lot.
weekend.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. There you go. There you go. So you know what we deal with.
Mhm.
No, but it's the, I mean, every there are very few times now where there's a practice and like all the parents aren't sitting there in the stands and watching the practice. Now, whether or not they see Johnny not following instructions very well or, knowing where he's supposed to be when, that's a different topic. But, um, it's uh, from that aspect, I kind of have a different experience, I guess, so far.
Yeah.
That we had a girl that we interviewed that's part of this series, and she's a PhD in applied sports psychology. And you'll really like the episode, Randy. It's very I left it like my eyes were huge.
Yeah. Same.
That there's three types of parents: the snowplow parent, the helicopter parent, and now there's what they call the Velcro parent.
Yeah.
And she talked about that Velcro parent is attached to that kid in everything they do all the time, never lets them go. When I drop my kid off, it's very important. I've said this before that my kid learns to be coached by somebody other than me.
Hmm.
To the point that my kid plays 8-year-old soccer and flag football, and I still don't know the rules of flag football. I'm real confused. And it's probably a good thing I don't know the rules, right? Um, but when I drop him off, I sit in the parking lot in my car.
Hmm.
I don't watch practice. And I look down
Yeah.
at parents, and there's these groups of dads, like 8 dads here, and groups of 8 moms here. They're watching practice, and I think, how does the coach with 8 people and dads coaching and the mom handing them the water bottle,
Yeah.
It's a
right?
big
Yeah.
distraction.
We've all seen the parent that delivers the water bottle into the dugout. I tell you what, you want to get peer pressured and bullied when I was a kid, let mommy come bring you a snack and a gift.
Yeah.
I would, I would, I would, I would make I'll make it horrible for you as one of my teammates. Um, but the Velcro parent, I grew up in a coaching family. And people's like, well, what was your dad like? And I said, my dad's coaching hero was Bobby Knight. And that's all I got to say. Most people go, oh, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to ask my dad who
They go,
his was because he was a coach too.
and my dad goes, it was Mr. Knight in the home. You never criticized Mr. Knight coaching. You never criticized anything about Mr. Knight. My dad worked Indiana basketball camps. My dad's hero is Bobby Knight. So and that's how he coached.
Sure.
And if practice was at 5 o'clock, he locked the doors at 4:50, 4:59.
Hmm.
There was no such thing as parent. My dad couldn't
Yeah.
coach. Wouldn't happen. He'd make one practice, one game, and go to the AD and be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
He locked the doors. And you were late as a player, and parents weren't allowed in.
Right.
My team. I think there's a happy medium you have to have there, right?
Sure.
But one of the things I want to talk about, Randy, and we have a little list of things that we're probably not going to talk about all of it, but just a little guide. Um, One of the things when I talk about the state of youth sports in a book I'm reading talked about it is the rising cost of youth sports
Hmm.
has it's been a 40 from 2019 to 2025 or to 2024. There's been a 46% increase in the amount of money the average home spends on youth sports within the family. And do you believe that some of the pricing of youth sports has priced out certain people?
Um, certain aspects of it for sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely.
Ball or travel ball, the cost of travel ball, because there's no, the YMCA leagues and the city league, those are getting less.
Yeah,
And rec sports is probably travel sports is to me is not kind of like an extension of rec sports. It is rec sports.
it is.
Um, but there's a cost to being on a team that has the word premier or elite in it, right?
Hmm.
Um, what are your thoughts on the increased pricing out kids who maybe have the talent and the desire but don't have the money?
Sure. Sure. It is such a um it's it's difficult for those kids, right? And for those families, like because it is and you kind of hit on it. I mean, especially at the young ages, travel ball has just become rec ball that costs money. It's the same players that would have been playing rec ball 30 years ago. It's the same coaches that would have been coaching the rec ball teams 30 years ago. Now you got to pay for it. And you got to spend more money in travel. You got to spend, you know, when you're going to spend more money at the ballpark or restaurants if you're out of town or whatever it is. So it has become basically just an expensive version of rec ball. And there's some good things obviously, but there's there's obviously a lot of bad. But you know, and I have heard of groups before that, do cost a good bit of money. But if they do come across a kid that just can't afford to do it, that, other parents will help them out or they'll quote unquote scholarship a kid. But, that can get into some complicated area as well. Because there are plenty of people who, you know, cry poor and say they can't afford it. But man, you check that Facebook page out and they got a lot of pictures at concerts, double fisting the beers. And, man, that $90,000 truck's pretty nice. And that kid that can't afford to play travel ball's got a $400 bat. And so it becomes a very sticky situation there. But there are instances where kids kind of you know, lose out on opportunities because of the cost for sure.
Yeah. You hear a lot of inner city kids aren't playing as much baseball. You hear that.
Hmm.
Um, I do know of a few specific incidences um, where you know little Billy was going to a travel tournament and he wanted to win. And little Billy had a friend who could bring the heat off the mound, and Daddy would pay for that kid to join the tournament.
Hmm.
He'd come in, throw 18 innings in a weekend,
Yeah.
strike everybody out, and they'd win. And then the kid would go back home, and then they'd call him for the next tournament, right? And the daddy would pay for him to do it. You do see a lot of that, and that brings up a lot of other issues. But I do think pricing is an issue. Economics becomes an issue. It's a billion-dollar industry. There are now people. I didn't hear about this when I was younger. There are now people and parent or adults whose their sole job is to run a league. They get paid a lot of money
Hmm.
to simply run a travel ball, AAU,
Mhm.
elite program, whatever you want to call it, travel elite club, but they're the president of a youth sports club.
Hmm.
Their only job is that.
Right.
And they make a lot of money.
Hmm.
And the economics for them is how can I put this in a position for me and our organization to make the most money?
Hmm.
It eventually becomes not what is the best for my kid. It's what can provide the most income to our organization.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And there becomes a conflict with that. Um, Another thing, you have a really interesting take on this. Um, Around 25% of parents report significant pressure to push their kid towards one sport. Randy, you have actually changed some of my thoughts on this in the conversations we've had. Um, It says particularly in higher income levels, which shows me that they're just some of this is the organization just wants all that parent money inside their sport. I don't want you to go play other sports because I want your money to stay here. I don't want it to go play on other sports.
Hmm.
Um, can you discuss now? The word is early specialization. It's not on time specialization,
Sure.
right? It's called early specialization, which I agree that early specialization is poor.
Hmm.
For some kids at some point specialization is it bad.
Sure.
There are some people that say never specialize until you go to college. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know if I truly believe that.
Probably different for everybody.
Different for everybody up to a
Hmm.
certain age,
Hmm.
and the goals have changed.
What do
We
you define as early? What's the age range for early?
there's an early sport. There are early sport specialization sports that are like diving, gymnastics are what they call early specialization
Hmm.
because a lot of them hit their peak early. There are late specializations that start around 17.
Right. So early specialization was 8, 9,
No, early
10.
specialization would be 13, 14, 15 in
Okay.
seats. Late specialization, it would be 17, 18 in most sports are late specialization sports. Um, the model, long-term athletic development model has uh late specialization or specialization sports happen around 17 or 18. What I'm seeing is specialization is starting to occur at 10, 11, 12,
Hmm.
13. That's what I disagree with. But I don't disagree in specialization as is always wrong as a blanket statement, right? But the examples are extreme
Mhm.
to me. It's the kid that's going to go to college for free. It's the kid that's going to get drafted in baseball. Um, the kid who has greater opportunities than the other 95% of kids don't have. Can you give us your take on that subject?
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, um, obviously you always got to look at everything individually, and what's your why? Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you making the decisions you're doing? Now is in is if these are your goals and these are your, this is your why. Now let's look at your process. I think from a general standpoint, kids should play whatever they want to play, however many
Yeah.
sports they want to play. Um, you know, if you enjoy playing football. I mean, I got a buddy whose son literally he will play flag football, baseball, soccer. I believe he's in basketball leagues. Like, but he enjoys every one of them, has a good time, and just I mean, just eats it up. He wants to compete in as many things as he can compete in, and I think that's awesome. Um, there are some kids that maybe only like two things. They
Yeah.
might, you're going to get the rare kid that just he likes one sport and that is it. And he's tried other things and doesn't enjoy doing them. And you got to kind of take him a little bit differently than, my buddy's son that's playing 17 of them. Um, but I think when kids are forced out of something they want to try or want to do for um for reasons that don't make a whole lot of sense, that's a problem. And you do see that. And I we've got players of all ages coming through the facility, and I've got some. Well, I had a kid the other day that he's an eighth grader right now, and we were having the discussion um, with him and his mom about what he's going to do going forward, and especially when he gets into high school next year as a ninth grader. And this year he played football in the fall. He played rec basketball in the winter, and plays baseball obviously in the spring and summer. And he would do his travel ball in the fall while he was doing football as well. But you know, he's concerned that when he gets to school next year, that if he tries to play basketball, it's gonna like they're gonna hold it against him from a baseball standpoint, and he's worried. And this is at the school level, so we're
Mhm.
always talking about travel, rec, all that sort of stuff. But but a lot of this pressure comes from the high school level, and then it just works its way on down. And um, and of course his mom wants to see him play all three because he can. I mean, kid's a really good athlete. He's whatever sport he decides to do full time, which baseball seems to be what he likes the most right now. I mean, kid's gonna be successful. He's one of the best football players on the football field, one of the best basketball players on the court, one of the best baseball players on the baseball
If he
field. Like
picked up a tennis racket in 3 months, he'd probably be the best
he
tennis. Right?
exactly
One of those things.
right,
You got one of
right.
those at school right now. Yeah.
Yep. But he's concerned about and basketball is definitely his third in terms of his passion for it. But he likes it. But he's concerned that if he goes out, because the way the seasons overlap down here. And I told him, I said, hey, I said, growing up in Western New York, we had a lot of disadvantages when it comes to sports, but you really didn't have anybody telling you that you couldn't do this or that because baseball practice was going to start in January. We had snow on the ground, so so the seasons really made it a whole lot easier to do multiple things. But here, obviously, I mean, high school baseball has come to the point where, I mean, these kids, whether I mean, and obviously there's some programs probably following rules better than others, but my God, all fall they're doing, whether it's open practice stuff in a fall
Mhm.
league, right when they get back to school after Christmas, they start open practices. Scrimmages start in February. I mean, it's like there's such an overlap in the high school seasons that, you know, a lot of these kids feel pressure like, hey, if I'm going to miss the first month of baseball practice because I want to play basketball, is that gonna, am I gonna lose my spot on the team, or am I gonna lose my starting spot, or is it gonna put me in the doghouse? And
That's crazy from a high school team.
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
Li-
and
um, I mean, it happens.
yeah,
This is a real conversation I have all the time. And what I think it comes down to at the high school level is you have to have very clear mission statements from the athletic department that we don't allow discrimination against kids that play multiple sports. And the athletic department has to stand very firm that if we hear or find out that there is conversation about kids being punished for playing multiple sports, or anybody saying you're if you miss these preseason for another sport, then yeah, chances are you probably won't play. um that's a weak culture. That's a
Mhm,
weak administration.
mhm.
That's a very much a poor coach in my now. Could he not develop as well as the other kids and just not be good enough because he didn't get the time? Of course, right?
Sure.
I don't know a kid that steps off the basketball court and grabs a baseball bat and just starts cranking triples. It doesn't happen. You can't do it in baseball. You really can't. I don't think
Yeah.
you have to be. It's
It's
like
technical.
you have to be golfing to be better at
Yeah.
golf. You have to
Yeah.
have at bats, but the basketball coach can't understand that you're going to spend some time not doing basketball all the time, and you might be hitting in the cage after basketball practice.
Yeah. I
Uh,
just, yeah, I don't remember like as a part of my high school experience if I know my soccer club did that and I was forced out of my soccer club, but my high school coaches never did that. Like I was very much allowed to play because I ended up going to rec soccer after being in a travel team that pushed me out of it for playing lacrosse. And I remember like my coaches were like, if you're training and conditioning in another sport, it's okay,
And
you can miss
and
that
and
condition.
and I don't even necessarily believe that coaches feel that way. I think a lot of times it's it's a misinterpreted thing
mm,
that becomes a thought process amongst the players and parents that I mean there's a lot of things that I hear that I know darn well didn't come from a coach or an organization or a team. It just, it'll just, and I don't know what the source of some of these ideas will be, but like I say, I don't even necessarily believe it's the coaches pressuring the
like,
kids. Just somehow that idea is created out of somewhere, and
I don't know.
and
I could see it being pressure from the coach. I don't know about
oh,
necessarily at the high school level, but
no, it's
sure,
I know that was a thing
like you said, every situation is different, right?
for
right,
sure.
right,
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Listen, I have learned that kids will throw anybody under the bus to avoid accountability,
hmm
Oh, yeah.
and they will come to you and say, I'm not going to play this year because my coach said I can't if I want to make the baseball program. And then you go talk to the coach, and he goes, absolutely did not say that at all.
yeah,
He
yeah,
did not. And I'll go speak to the kid right now. Come to find out, the kid just doesn't want to tell you he doesn't want to play.
Yeah. No,
I've
that
been in
makes sense.
situations. I had a conversation with a kid yesterday who wasn't signed up for football. And I went up to him and said, hey, I noticed you weren't signed up for football. And I said, I'm going to have a conversation with you, but let me preface this conversation with you. If you don't love it and want to do it, don't do it. Flat out. And he's like, well, coach, I just, this summer I want to get a job. There's some things I want to do and I'm excited about, and I'm just thinking about it. And I said, okay. I said, gotcha. Because it's hard in the summer if you want to play football. It's hard.
hmm
Mhm.
And I said, but just know that I want to coach you. I think you're going to add value to the team. But at the same time, if you come to me and say, coach, I just really don't love it like the other guys do, then I don't want you to play because I love you. And I don't want that I don't want you to be miserable. I
right,
give
Mhm.
kids that out because
yeah,
it's not about me.
right,
It's about the kid. And a lot of coaches have made it about them. Well,
yeah,
they're crapping on the school if they're not playing because they can really help them out. I had a kid one year going into playoff football. He was a big part of the team and had some knee tendonitis because he was playing basketball on the weekends to get ready for basketball and play summer ball. And I went to him and I said, man, if you can really just like pump that a break so we can go into playoff football, that'd be great. And he goes, coach, that's hard because I just love hooping. And I went, all right, man. Dapped him up and said, I feel you, dog. Like,
I- I'm
you know
sure the
what I'm saying?
culture,
yeah,
Like, he loves hooping.
I'm sure the culture at a private school too, though, is very different than at a public school.
Not always. Not always.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying from a perspective of like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like kids can go to that private school for that specific sport where it's harder to do that for a public school,
So
right?
here's what you see at a private school. We need multiple kids to play multiple sports and the best athletes to play a lot of sports.
Okay, because that's a smaller
A
population.
smaller population.
Okay.
You go to a big school, and
Mhm.
Randy, maybe you don't want to name names, but I'm gonna name names. Somerville High School is big, big school.
Okay.
The number of kids trying to play varsity baseball there is a ridiculous number of kids, right? Like when they roll into freshman year at Somerville, I would say there's 120 kids who want to play prepare their rest of their life to
Holy crap.
play on a spot that has 18 kids, 19, 20 kids, right?
That's a lot.
So those kids from the pressures of it will feel like they need to play year round and able to make
Mm,
right.
okay.
It brings up another subject, Randy. A lot of these subjects they want to bash the parents, then the parents want to bash the coach. I'm very pragmatic in my views on a lot of things. It's never 100% one way.
Right.
But I do think that some of the onus is on coaches, some of the onus is on parents. Um, I've shared this story before. I have a friend, a long conversation with somebody that was involved in European soccer. And I said, what do you notice here the most? And they said, um, unprepared coaches on not actually like knowing how to coach, not X's and O's. I don't argue. You should never go to a coach and argue X's and O's as a parent, right? You
Right.
shouldn't.
Right.
That's it's they're the coach, X's and O's in playtime. Why did you run this play? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you hit and run here? Why didn't you? Don't do that as a coach, right?
Right.
Don't put that coach as a parent. Um, I'm not talking about X's and O's. I'm talking about the actual skill of coaching. She goes, man, our youth coaches in Europe at soccer level get a lot of education on how to coach and how to be coaches. She goes, I see coaches here that step straight out of their accounting job and into the coaching field, and also
Hmm.
they're a head coach of a travel ball league or the head coach of an elite baseball pro or a soccer program. You can speak to this because you are a coach. Where is the state of youth coaching right now as far as obviously there's good ones, there's bad ones. What's
Sure.
the overall state out there as far as being good coaches?
Obviously, there are a lot more underqualified coaches than there are qualified coaches. Okay. I think the reason that this is such a problem now, it's not, there was the majority of coaches were underqualified 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years. I mean, the majority of coaches are in youth sports are going to be underqualified for the most part. The problem is now the you add in the expectations or what people think they're getting when they sign up for something or um, what they expect from that coach. Whether it's whether the coach is at fault for making promises to people that he can't deliver on, or whether it's just something that people have unrealistic expectations for that coach. Um, that's where the underqualified coaching situation has become such a problem, if you will. A lot of these guys, like you talk about the accountant stepping out of his office and all of a sudden coaching in some organization or coaching some elite, quote unquote, elite travel team. Like anybody that wants to go out there and start something can. And you get a lot of these guys that, you know, it's like, well, I can do everything for these kids that this guy over here can do, and I'm going to start this team. And then all of a sudden, they got to get themselves some players, so they start telling parents, "Hey, I'm putting this team together, and we're going to do this, and it's going to be elite, and I'm going to develop them so that they can, stick together in high school or whatever these promises are that they are presenting them." Um, there's a lot of stuff that's not real. And that's the dilemma right now. when coaches are underqualified, but they're coaching rec ball and they're volunteering and hey, they're basically showing up and writing a lineup so the kids can play and they're cheering them on. It's not a problem. Like, thank you to people, to moms, dads, whoever that are doing those things. But when people are paying thousands of dollars for stuff, or whether it's a travel team or whether it's um, uh, skill training or whatever it is, and it's being offered by people that don't have any better idea what they're doing than the next guy down the street, that's where the issue comes into play. And I mean, and then you can branch off from that and start talking about how it, you know, how that affects kids from a whether it's a physical health standpoint or shoot, nowadays a mental health standpoint with some of the
Yeah.
stuff they got to deal with. I mean, it's that's your issue is our expectations are way up here, but there's a lot of coaching that's way down here, and that's the problem.
I do think some of the problem is, if you look at like your typical high school in the area, they're like, we need to find elite coaches. And they're like, for $1,000 stipend for 4 months.
Right.
They hire the social studies teacher.
Yeah.
Or it's just like, you're not going to find somebody that's a high performer that's going to do that, because they're going to say, well, what do you have to put, if they sat down and said, what do you have to put up with to do this job? Okay, well, let me talk to the coach before me. And the
Yeah.
coach before me is like, unprepared parents, emails. It turned into 5 hours a day, travel issue. I'm. It's just not going to be worth it for them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not going to be worth it for them. And the great coaches, listen. I get on social media every day to find a new coach saying I'm stepping away
Mm-hmm.
after this many years, and they've been an amazing mentor for young kids, young
Yeah.
women, young men, and I make calls sometimes. I said, "Hey, I read the interview, but why did they leave?" They're like, "Parent pressure, and it just wasn't worth it anymore."
Yeah.
Mhm.
That sucks for the kids, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids, because no coach does it because they're going to get rich. They do it because they love the
Just
sport or they love the kid. And parents need to keep that in perspective, right?
sure.
Because I have seen parents in my 25 years of doing this. I have seen parents even come to me asking for dirt on a coach to get him removed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, get him removed. Your kid's 13. You're coming, you know him. Is he, you got anything, like, what do you think about him? I was like, I think he's volunteering his time because he loves the sport. You got any, like, literally asking for dirt.
Sure.
Mhm.
Did he get let out of his previous job? I don't know.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. Right. I mean, he wouldn't leave it because the parents were so great. The parents were so great. I had to leave. Right. Um, I have a coach that said he had some of his best experiences coaching in lower economic high schools because the parents weren't involved.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Sometimes the parents weren't even present. And he's like, I could raise men, didn't have the worry about parents Velcroing me. We coached kids and we didn't have to worry about all the other stuff. He goes, then he went to a very affluent area. He's like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to what's going on here. Right. But there are coaches that aren't qualified because it's hard to find
Sure.
Mhm.
coaches and pay them pennies.
Right.
Right. Um, and the expectations, I mean, we get coaches that go 7-5 and get fired because they didn't go 9-3 like the previous guy.
Mm-hmm.
High school. Well, what is your goal? Is it winning? Is the only standard of a good coach wins and losses? Because I know a lot of toxic cultures that go undefeated. I know a lot of amazing cultures that go 500.
Mm-hmm.
I do, right? So that takes us to the parent side. I feel like we're beating a dead horse with the parent side a little bit. Y'all know we hear, and maybe it's because I'm in the coaching industry. I hear it, or maybe you hear it the most. I think the disconnect with parents is when I ask a parent. This a friend of mine um, recommends coaches to ask parents this beginning of every year. Literally send them an email and get a reply and save the email. And the question is, what outside of winning would make this sports season experience great for you? And they asked the parent that. What outside of winning? Because everybody's going to be like, "Pfft, winning." No, what outside of winning would make this experience amazing for you? I think he uses the word amazing. What outside of winning would make this experience amazing for you? And it's a conversation starter, but also a conversation ender. Because some parents will be honest and be like, I need my kid to start. Well, let's get ahead of that. Let's set the expectation before the first practice. Nobody's guaranteed to start. I will put the best 9 kids out on that baseball field that gives them an opportunity to win and protect our culture. All right. I want my kid to learn how to work hard, sacrifice, um, work hard for something greater than him, learn accountability and responsibility for his actions, like be on time, work hard, meritocracy. Okay, we can do that. I can promise you I will provide that for you. So 6 games into the season, when the parent comes to you and be like, why doesn't my kid play? Well, let's go back to your email. Had nothing to do with playtime.
Hmm.
Mhm.
They still have a positive experience, right? Um, Managing the expectations. And then I don't think parents go to kids and be like, hey, why are you playing? I just want to be hanging around my buddies and play a sport.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Parents don't ask kids that. So what happens is you get those overruling parents. They think one of my favorite question things that parents say, Coach, obviously you just don't like my kid. What? I don't like your 15-year-old. Like I, I've never hated a 15-year-old in my
Right.
life. In my life. Now I could say the work ethic's not there, right? Or the skill's not there. Or sometimes parents just need to hear, well, that kid's just better than your son.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
there's nothing wrong with that. I always have the joke of blaming genetics. I go, it's probably genetics. I kind of put it back on the parent, right? Um, but there's a disconnect between the parents' goals and the kids' goals that I think lead to parents acting irrational at times
Mhm.
that needs to rein in. What are your thoughts on that? I know I said a lot. We talked about coaches. Where are you seeing it from the parent perspective?
So the I'm trying to think of how to best put this. I think the expectations that people like us are going to have for whether it's whether it's the kids high school coaches or whatever level it is often so different um than what a lot of the parents are going to have. To me, and you know like I say, I've coached at a pretty high level and have experienced different things. And for my kids, like I just like I'm not expecting somebody to be an X's and O's genius. I'm not expecting somebody to turn them into a professional athlete. I'm not expecting somebody to lead them to a state championship at some point. Like, are you helping instill um, good life habits that are going to help my kid be successful no matter what they do? Are you helping instill, when we talk about being a good teammate at home, are you demanding that at practicing at games and in the dugout or on the sidelines? When we talk about work ethic and accountability, and like, are you holding my kid to those standards so that regardless of what they do in life, it's going to help them, be successful in whatever it is they choose to do? Like, that's what I want to see a coach do, and that's how I define a good coach. There unfortunately, there was a guy that I had a lot of respect for in our area as a coach because of how great he was at those things. And I'll be the first one to tell you there were things from a baseball standpoint that I did not agree with that they would do as a program and as a staff. But I that doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care. Like, that's perfectly fine. I respected the heck out of the guy because he was making them better people, better human beings. And that to me, that's where we're missing the boat a lot of times, is in our expectations of what what we're expecting coaches to do for our kids. They're not, like I said, it's not all about the wins and losses as you were mentioning. Yeah, like everybody that steps on a field wants to win. Nobody steps out there and it's like, man, I hope we get beat today. Everybody wants to be
I don't care if
successful.
we win or lose. That's my.
Right. Right.
I don't care if we win or lose. Somebody says that around me. I was like,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
One of the things I had, and this usually, and again, I need to be careful. I said
Yeah.
this usually comes from the female side of the perspective. Okay, this is where Greg goes mute. Right.
No, I give it to me. I want to hear it.
I've heard people come to me about my son and say, we just got to work on some things. He really hates to lose. So, excuse me?
What's the issue?
Yeah.
What do we get? You're,
Yeah.
you're, I now I care about how he responds to losing
Sure.
Mhm.
or getting beat. I care about how he treats others in the process of losing something. I never want my son to be okay with mediocrity and losing. I want him to drive him to get better,
Yeah.
Mhm.
healthy manner. I don't care if it's academics or sports. I want him to understand that that should be motivation to drive you to work hard.
Mhm.
Hmm.
If you're listening to this and you have people surrounding your child and they come to you and say, your kid just hates losing, it's all right, just man, he hates to lose. I almost invite you to not even respond.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Don't even have that argument. So, yes, winning is important. It's why we do play. And people say, well, they don't keep score. Uh, I promise you, my kid's keeping score. Right? I promise you, every kid's out there is keeping score.
Mhm.
I'm the dad. I'm keeping score. Right? Um, one thing I wanted to make sure we did here is we understood like this is a state of youth sports from a perspective of somebody that's involved in coaching, who's played clubs like travel sports,
Mhm.
coaches kids in a facility, has coached in a college level. And Randy, you seem to be very pragmatic about anything that doesn't involve Buffalo sports or Met sports. When you talk about the Mets or the Bills, you tend to become very irrational. Um, but that's I'm the same way, right? Um, thanks for coming on, man. I hope people watch this and they say like they hear it from some aside. Here's the difference: is you have a kid now,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? I have a kid now. I'm seeing it from both sides, right? There will come a time, Randy, when your kid gets involved in sports that you'll actually ask for accountability from other people.
Mhm.
And you're going to say, hey, and I've said this to friends, hey, keep me accountable so I don't become that irrational parent.
Sure.
You ever see me talking in a way or acting in a way or doing things of what we've seen as coaches from the parent side, I give you full permission to make fun of me, send me mean texts, um, get mad at me, yell at me, be honest with me, be truthful with me if you see me doing that because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to ruin it for my kid. Um, and coaches, we've seen it for the longest time. I'm sure you've had hard conversations with kids. Managing kids' expectations is one of the hardest things I've ever done with parents. Um, because we've heard the kid that say, well, my kid wants to play baseball, but he's never going to settle on anything less than Carolina or Clemson. And I said, well, then your kid doesn't love baseball.
Right.
Mhm.
Love baseball. Um, my kid might be undersized, but you don't understand how big his heart is. Okay, Rudy was a great movie. Okay, really cool, but right, not everybody, right? Um, from the coaching perspective, you again have to remove your emotions as a coach because there's so many people that get involved in coaching and all of a sudden they want to be Bill Belichick,
Mhm.
right? And that's not your purpose as a coach. Somebody commented on one of my videos when we were talking about this series, and they talked about the interchangeable word of coaches and mentors. And I was like, wow, I never thought of that. I am more worried about my kid being around a great environment of mentors than I am at this stage teaching the X's and O's. Now, if my kid gets in a position where, again, this is probably his genetics are going to be limiting, but if my kid ever gets in a position that the next level is possible for him, I am going to start worrying about X's and O's, right? I want those X's and O's done. I want her to be taught how to play X's and O's. But in the meantime, I want somebody who's not going to let my kid blame his teammates because somebody scored a run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I want out of a coach. That's going to hold them accountable, have conversations with them. One of the best conversations I've ever heard is a good friend of mine got this feedback from a parent. The parent came to him at the end of the season and said, "Coach," basically said this: "I haven't always liked you. I haven't always agreed with your decisions. There's been sometimes I've been really, really mad at you. Basically, like, I don't like you, but my kid loves you and you love my kid. And because of that, we're cool." And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, there you go. You're
Yeah.
never going to make everybody happy. But at the end of the day, if that kid loves you and you love that kid,
Yep.
mission accomplished as a coach. Mission accomplished as a parent to admit that to a coach.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't really like you, but my kid loves you and you love my kid. So we're cool, right? That's one of the greatest compliments I've ever heard. And she said it right in front of me to the coach. And I went, at first I was like appalled, like, oh my gosh. Then I was like, wait, that might be the most amazing compliment I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Because the coach, at the end of the day, if the parent loves you, but the kid hates you, you probably messed up.
Mm-hmm.
You probably bent to the parents, right? You're probably a coach that bent to parent pressure, right? So, can you share a little bit in closing, Randy, that if someone's watching this, can you say like, hey, this is the current state and this is, maybe give a final send off if you can?
Yeah. I just encourage people to always, you know, sit down and really um, reflect. And at the end of the day, um, ask themselves, what do I want my kid to get out of this? What, what's truly the important thing? And I think you might have said it the other day in a discussion we had, or maybe you'd posted it and we talked about it. Um, but I thought it was great. And it was basically, if you knew as a parent that your kid was never gonna get that scholarship, was never gonna, play at that whatever that level is that you're shooting for as the parent, would you still make the same decisions that you're making now? Would you still prioritize the things that you're prioritizing now? Um, I think that just really taking some time to consider that is is huge, and something that more people need to do. Because nobody's saying not to have goals, nobody's saying not to encourage your kid to work hard and chase their goals. But make sure it's their goals for one.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure it's support and not a, hey, I'm shoving you down this path.
Yeah. I've never had a successful kid have to get pushed to do things by parents.
Right. Right.
All right, brother. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank
You,
you.
With all due respect.